I recently watched the first two episodes of X-Men 97, so let's talk about them. So the first episode is about Cyclops races to find the source of new anti-mutant technology, and the second episode is about when Magneto is forced by the UN to stand trial. A group of anti-mutant rioters test his resolve. And these two first episodes are amazing. It is great to see some of the original voice cast back voicing their characters, and I love how it continues off with what we left off in the original series, taking place I believe like a year later, as we see how the X-Men are doing after Xavier's death, and how Magneto is doing too. And so far we learn more things about some of the characters, as well as it sets up for some more interesting stories. But the main thing that stands out so far is the animation. They upgraded the 90s animation mixed with the what if animation, and it just looks super cool. Especially with the action and everything. Like, it just heavily stands out that it's probably some of the best animated stuff that there is today. Overall, the first two episodes are amazing, and it is a great continuation to the original series. I cannot wait to see what they do next. But have you seen the first two episodes of X-Men 97? If so, what are your thoughts on them? Let me know in the comments below, and follow me for more. I recently watched the newest episode of X-Men 97, so let's talk about it. So the episode is about the team propelled into a tragic confrontation with an immortal mad scientist. Pretty obvious who that sounds like if you're an X-Men fan. And again, this is another great episode in the X-Men saga, as it continues off with what we saw in the last episode. When there were two Jeans, comic fans know what will happen. But with how this episode played off was pretty interesting, because there were just some spooky moments in this. Like, kind of like taking over the X-Mansion that made me think, oh, this is what New Mutants should have done with that movie. So, in a way, this episode pretty much did the spookiness that should have been in New Mutants much better than what New Mutants actually did. And with this episode, there was just a lot of great character moments and character dynamics. And one thing I do want to mention that with the new X-Men series so far, and especially in episode 3 and the last few episodes, Cyclops is just amazing. I am glad he is getting like his front and center pretty much, well, not on the poster. But still, what Marvel has been doing with Cyclops lately has just been amazing. And with this episode, it just raises some questions on the things that happen. But as always, the animation in this is just amazing. It stands out. So far, this is probably one of the best animated shows there is. I'm sorry, Invincible, but X-Men 97 got you beat. Overall, this is another great episode, but have you seen it? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below, and follow me for more. I just watched X-Men 97 episode 4, so let's talk about it. So this is an interesting episode as it's kind of like split into two. The first half of the episode is about Jubilee. It is her 18th birthday and she is sucked into this 8-bit video game by Mojo, so she must survive and deal with that. And the second half of the episode is about Storm and Forge, which this was an interesting idea for this. I wasn't expecting it to be like this, but that's how it was. And with the Jubilee part, it was really good as we got to explore more of Jubilee, more of how she is feeling with everything that happened pretty much. With Xavier gone and now Magneto taking over, I'm still waiting for Gambit to beat up Magneto. But with the animation for that part, it just stood out. Like, what they've been doing with Jubilee animated-wise just looks amazing. And I am glad to explore more of Jubilee. And with the Storm part, I felt it adds more to her character, as we also get to learn more about Forge, which that does set up for something comic fans might know about what it sets up for, because that ending, I did not know what to expect, to be honest. And now we gotta wait a whole nother week for part 2 of that. But like with the action in the episode, with the first part of it was just amazing. Jubilee kicks a lot of butt. Seeing more of her and Roberto were great. But really it was the second half of the episode that just, it sets up for something big, let's just say. I think it sets up for something big. Overall, this was another great episode from X-Men 97, but have you seen it? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below and follow me for more. I recently watched a brand new episode of X-Men 97, episode 5, so let's talk about it. So the new episode is about Magneto, Gambit, and Rogue going to Genosa as UN honorees, while there's like a press event that risks exposing the team's dirty laundry that is happening at the X-Mansion. And holy crap! I know I react to this with a lot of episodes, but just this one in particular, there are some things in this episode, well, a lot of things that happen in this episode, especially within like the final 10 minutes, that will probably change the series forever. And not to get into any spoilers, but the MVP of this episode was Gambit, as Gambit has been one of my favorite X-Men, and I love his relationship with Rogue, so it was great to get more of Gambit in this episode. And within this episode, we do see the return of Nightcrawler, with the original voice actor coming back to voice him, which was awesome. And one thing I want to point out with like this new revival of the X-Men animated series is that I love what they've been doing with Magneto. I'm not a fan of his relationship with Rogue, but I get it. That's comics. It happened in the comics. But with what they're doing with Magneto so far, it just has been amazing. I love just how complex he is. But with this episode, things happen that it is like, holy crap, I can't believe a Marvel animated series is doing this. And with this new episode, it just puts X-Men 97 further on top. And with what Marvel Studios, Marvel Animation is doing with the X-Men for this series, yeah, it's safe to say that the X-Men reboot for the MCU is gonna be awesome. And just after this episode, it's like, what is supposed to happen next? Comic fans might have an idea, but as I mentioned plenty of times, I am just surprised with the things they did in this episode. Like, I was not expecting it. Overall, this was another great episode in X-Men 97. And I just need the other episodes right now. I have to find out what happens next. But what are your thoughts on X-Men 97 so far? Let me know in the comments below. And also, what is one X-Men character you would like to see? I would like to see Deadpool appear somehow. And if Deadpool does appear, I hope that they bring back Nolan North to voice Deadpool. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below and follow me for more. I recently watched X-Men 97 episode 6, so let's talk about it. So the episode is about Storm is forced to face her worst fears in order to free herself. And this episode pretty much continues off right after episode 4 that ties into episode 5 eventually. But also in this episode, and this is a spoiler alert, we see the return of Professor X. Charles Xavier is back, and it was great to explore more of what was happening with him, what has been happening with him. Pretty much that type of stuff. And there are some Marvel characters in the wider Marvel universe that do appear, which was pretty cool. But with what this episode does with the Storm stuff, it's pretty interesting. And I mentioned this with episode 3 on like how they did like that spooky house thing. With this episode, we see that demon haunting Storm. And as I mentioned with episode 3, this does what New Mutants, that movie, tried to do with the spooky stuff much better. And just the moments that we got with Storm, very empowering, very important. So much character development, I feel like. As it was just perfectly done well. But honestly, it was pretty sad to see the X-Men intro. And just how the rest of the season plays out. Especially with the finale of this episode. It does give one a lot of theories. But we will just have to wait and see. Overall, this was another good episode from X-Men 97, but have you seen it? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below and follow me for more. I just watched X-Men 97 episode 7, so let's talk about it. So the episode is pretty much about the X-Men trying to find the guy who invented the Sentinels, Olivier Trask, until they realize they've been played by a mastermind. And this is another great addition, as this is pretty much a Rogue-centered episode. We see her grieve over Gambit's death, and she is pretty much taking matters into her own hands. And within this episode, we do see some Marvel characters appear that might connect to the other 90s animated series in a way, which is pretty cool to see more of the Marvel universe. And with that being said, I hope Spider-Man appears one day, and I hope that they revive the 90s Spider-Man series. But along with that, what this episode did with Rogue was amazing, as he is pretty much the MVP of this episode. As I mentioned, this is a Rogue-centered episode. So seeing the things that she would do, some of it was pretty shocking, but at the same time with what happened in episode 5, it makes sense. And with this episode, we do get more of Nightcrawler. It's always great, he is an awesome character, and there is a nice moment between him and Rogue, as they're pretty much siblings. And seeing with what happened in Genosha, how it is affecting the X-Men, it just leads to some powerful character moments. And with this episode, they pretty much tease the next bad guy, which some fans of the comics already know, already guessed it. So it is pretty interesting to see how that plays out in the next 3 episodes, as the next 3 episodes are going to be split into parts. And from what the showrunner of the series have said, it's pretty much going to be up there with episode 5. So get ready for more emotional hits. Overall though, episode 7 was another great episode in X-Men 97, and I just cannot wait for what they do next. What they've been doing with this series just has been amazing. And I am just surprised with a lot of decisions that they made, as there are some moments that is pretty much TVMA, which is just surprising to see, especially for a Marvel animated series like this. But regardless of that, it's just been amazing so far, and I just cannot wait for the next 3 episodes. But have you seen the latest episode of X-Men 97? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below and follow me for more. I watched the newest episode of X-Men 97, episode 8, so let's talk about it. The episode is about the X-Men must unite to face this new threat, and this is another great episode in the X-Men series, as we just get a lot more. We get more of the villain, Bastion, as this might be the X-Men's biggest threat yet. And in this episode, we do get an epic fight scene that involves Wolverine and Nightcrawler, as well as some Marvel character cameos, some I wasn't expecting. Plus, this episode proves Magneto was right. You remember in the Hawkeye series with the Thanos was right memes? Well, now we're going to get that with the Magneto was right stuff. And with this episode, this is just part 1 of a 3-parter. So there is just a lot more stuff to go down, which just makes one wonder what could happen next. Could we see more time travel? Because with this episode, it teases absolute points within a timeline and just so much more. And really the main thing with this series so far is just the story and the animation behind it. As the animation with the action and everything just looks amazing. It is just amazingly beautifully done. And there was just some stuff that happened in this episode too. Some stuff with the characters that definitely makes one wonder what could happen next. And honestly, this series so far has just been super unpredictable. But with what happens next, it's definitely probably most likely, of course, going to be a good one. And I just cannot wait to see the next 2 episodes. But what are your thoughts on the latest episode of X-Men 97, if you've seen it? Let me know in the comments below, and follow me for more. And also, who is one character you would like to appear in the X-Men 97 series? Whether it's one of the mutants or any one of the other Marvel superheroes. Let me know. I just watched the newest episode of X-Men 97, episode 9, so let's talk about it. So this is part 2 of the 3-part finale, and this episode is about the X-Men work to settle the score before it's too late. And this is another banger episode, as there's just some stuff that happens in this episode that, I don't know, I'm just surprised that they're getting away with doing some stuff. With this episode, we get some pretty cool character moments, with Xavier coming back, as there is some heat between him and some members of the team because he let Magneto lead the team. He gave the team to Magneto. And just how this episode turned out with the Magneto stuff, with Xavier now back, and with them going after Bastion. Like, holy crap! Like I mentioned, I'm just surprised with what they've done with some of the stuff in this series so far. Even in this episode, there is one part that is straight out of the comics that is pretty surprising to see on screen. Like, there's just a lot going on with this episode that also sets up for the finale next week. So it makes one wonder what could happen in the finale. Will it end in a cliffhanger? I hope not. But still, once again, with the series, with this episode, it has a lot of great character moments from Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine. Wolverine has been pretty much taking a big step back this season, so it's cool to see him with some awesome moments. Morph, he's been an MVP this season. Rogue is obviously going through a lot. There's that cool development with Storm, and it continues to show that Magneto was right, in a way. Overall, this is another great episode in X-Men 97, but have you seen it? If so, what are your thoughts on it? And what are your predictions for the finale? Let me know in the comments below, and follow me for more. I recently watched the season finale of X-Men 97, so let's talk about it. So episode 10, Tolerance is Extinction, part 3, is about that the X-Men's dreams are put to the test as mutant-human relations reach a tipping point. And this was a pretty epic finale. One of the main things that stood out in this was the animation, as there was this whole sequence battle between Sorrows and Magneto that was just epically done well. And with this finale, it helped dive more into the characters, and it just have many epic character moments, as well as many Marvel cameos, which was pretty epic to see. And just with this episode, it wraps up this first season perfectly well, but at the same time, it sets up for the second season, which has been said to be in works back to back with this. And just after watching this epic episode, I need season 2 right away. Hopefully we don't have to wait long for that. And just what this season did in general, it was near perfect. It did a great job continuing what we saw in the original stuff, and it did a good job pretty much introducing all this to a new audience too. And just the tone of this, the animation, the style, it was just all beautifully done very well. I do have like a few small gripes, but they're really nothing too major. But just with this X-Men series, this is one of the best things Marvel has done. and with them bringing back the 90s animated universe, it makes one wonder, could we see more 90s shows come back? From the Spider-Man animated series, the Iron Man one, even the Fantastic Four one, and the Hulk one. And not just that, but is it possible we could see other animated shows come back from Earth's Mightiest Heroes? With this revival, there is just a lot of opportunities for them to do. So I hope that they do more with the 90s animated stuff, because this has just been phenomenal from beginning to end so far. And I just cannot wait to see what they do with season 2 of this, because with what this episode did, and just the whole series did in general, was just phenomenal. This is probably one of the best animated superhero shows there is. And honestly, just one of the best animated shows there is. The animation just stands out. And you can kind of see that they do take some inspiration from anime with this. And one thing that I really liked about this series was that it felt like we got to spend more time with some of the characters. Like with Morph, for example. He was just kind of here and there in the original series. Now he's a main character in this, who steals the show at times too. And we cannot forget about the arc with Rogue and the arc with Storm, as the two of them had very great stories to explore within this new series. But like I mentioned plenty of times before, this season finale was just phenomenal, as it just has a lot of great character moments, a lot of great moments in general, and it just sets up for so much more that comic fans will know what's going to happen, and just what this series did in general. I hope it just leads to more animated shows like this in a way. But have you seen X-Men 97 episode 10, and have you seen the whole series? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below, and follow me for more.